Hello everyone, let's review all of our solving methods. So we have solved by factoring, we have solved by using square roots, and we have solved using the quadratic formula. And we're going to go through those three methods, and if you can do all these problems, you're going to do just fine on your quiz. So the first thing you have to remember is that you always need your quadratic to equal 0. So like this one equals 0, that's great, but these I'm going to have to do a step to get everything on one side. So I'll subtract 6x, and then you combine like terms, 20 and negative 6 make 14. All right, now, once you get everything on one side, you're going to multiply a times c, which is negative 15. So I need to find numbers that multiply to negative 15, but they also have to add to the middle. The middle is 14. And if it helps to make a table, 1 and 15, 3 and 5, those are the only choices because 5 and 3 is a repeat. So those multiply to 15, I need it to be negative 15. I'll put my minus sign right there, and then I got the two numbers I need. So I will split the middle, minus 1x plus 15x minus 5. And now once you've got four terms, it's called factor by grouping. So the GCF of the first two is x, and that would be 3x squared minus x if I distribute back in, plus 15 and 5 are both multiples of 5, 3x minus 1. Hey, they match up. That's a good sign. 3x minus 1 is one of my factors, and x plus 5 is the other. I need some more room. So now you have to set each factor equal to 0. So if it helps you to write yourself a little mini equation, when does this factor 3x minus 1 equal 0? You would add 1 and then divide by 3. So this factor equals 0 at 1/3, and this factor equals 0. If that was a one-step equation, you would just subtract 5. So 1/3 and positive 5 are my zeros. Okay. I'm going to go through the other ones, same deal. That's pretty much all we're going to do now. So we got 1 and negative 20. This is 1 and that's negative 20, so this one will be easy. We need to find numbers that multiply to negative 20 and add to negative 1. So 1 and 20, 2 and 10, 4 and 5. Put the minus sign right there, and you're good. Those add to negative 1, and they multiply to negative 20. So I split the middle, x squared stays the same, plus 4x minus 5x minus 20. Now let's factor by grouping. The GCF of the first two is x, bring down the minus sign. The GCF of 5 and 20 is 5. Now this is tricky. Negative 5 times x gives you negative 5x, and negative 5 times positive 4 gives you negative 20. And that also lines up the factors. So x plus 4, x minus 5, we're looking for zeros. So this factor is 0 at negative 4, and this factor is 0 at positive 5. So negative 4 and positive 5. A couple more. This one requires a little bit more setup. So when I combine my like terms, I'm going to add 10x and subtract 7 on both sides, plus 10x minus 7. So 2x squared doesn't have any like terms. Negative 5 and positive 10 make positive 5x, and then the negative 7 just moves over. So now I find numbers that multiply to 2 times negative 7 is negative 14, and add to 5. So 1 and 14, 2 and 7. It's got to be, that's the only thing that multiply to 14. What do I make negative? Make the negative 2. That's 5. 2x squared minus 2x plus 7x minus 7. Factor by grouping. The GCF is 2x. Now, 2x times 1 gives you 2x, so you need to have a placeholder there. Bring down your plus sign. The GCF is 7. And again, 7 times x is 7x. That should be a 1. 7 times negative 1 is negative 7. So you have x minus 1, 2x plus 7, and we're looking for zeros. So that would be at positive 1, subtract 7, divide by 2. Positive 1 and negative 7 halves. One more factoring. Get your 2x squared and your negative 9 on the other side. So that cancels out. 3x squared minus 2x squared is 1x squared, and 5 minus 9 is negative 4. So this one you could actually solve using square roots because there's no x to the first. But if it says factor, I'm going to factor x plus 2, x minus 2. That's dots, difference of two squares. So then this factor would equal 0 at negative 2, and this factor would equal 0 at positive 2. So plus or minus 2. That's factoring. You guys should be pros at factoring. Square roots. Square roots can be a little trickier, so you just got to notice there's sort of two types of problems. There's one where you have a quantity squared, x minus 9 is in parentheses, and that's getting squared. And then that is just a regular x squared. This is an x squared, and this is a quantity problem. So these two are going to kind of feel similar, and then 2 and 3 are going to kind of feel similar. So it's good to have a game plan. You need to isolate whatever's being squared, regardless. So that whole thing needs to get isolated. Add 20. 4 times x minus 9 squared equals 20 minus 4 is 16. We still don't have it isolated yet. Divide by 4. Now we have the squared term by itself. Something is getting squared on one side. On the other side, I have 4. Now I will square root both sides, and this is where you need to be really careful. There are two answers. On the left side, you have x minus 9, and on the right side, the square root of 4 is plus or minus 2. You got to have both. And to solve this, I will now add 9, and you have to write this a special way. 9 is positive, and it is getting added or subtracted to 2. Well, plus 2 or minus 2. So that means 9 plus 2 is 11, and 9 minus 2 is 7. So this is 7 or 11 are your answers. The second one, we're going to get x squared by itself, which kind of feels similar. Negative 2x squared equals negative 22. Divide by negative 2. Don't try and square root yet. 22 divided by 2 is 11. Now, I square root, and this one's going to be a little bit easier. You'll just say x equals plus or minus radical 11. 11 is a prime number. You can't simplify that radical if you want to. That is the best answer. Don't round. Just leave it as plus or minus radical 11. And this one's going to be kind of similar. When I add or subtract 4, x squared minus 7 equals 4 minus 4 is 0. I'll divide by 3. X squared minus 7, 0 divided by 3 is 0, and then I'll add 7. Now I have x squared by itself, so I get x equals plus or minus radical 7. One more, this is a quantity, so add 35 to both sides. 2 times x minus 8 squared equals 35 plus 7 makes 42. Divide by 2. X minus 8 squared equals 21. Now I can square root both sides. X minus 8 equals plus or minus radical 21. And last, again, add 8 to both sides, and you get x equals positive 8 plus or minus radical 21. That is the best answer you can give me. Okay, that is exact. And radical 21 doesn't simplify, so there's nothing we can do to make that better. 8 plus or minus radical 21. You could get the decimals if you did 8 plus radical 21 and 8 minus radical 21, but I don't care about the decimals. I'm good. Next up, quadratic formula. So I will write the quadratic formula, and you should definitely write the quadratic formula a bunch of times to make sure you know it. Big fraction bar over 2a. I strongly encourage you to do the discriminant first. So I'm going to do that first in every problem, but I guess I have to have it equal 0 before I do anything. 8p squared plus 14p, negative 9 and negative 6 make negative 15. So the first thing I'm going to do is find the discriminant. That's b squared, 14 squared, and put it in parentheses, minus 4ac. If you get the discriminant wrong, you will get the whole thing wrong. So make sure you get this part right. Make sure you know how to use your calculator, whatever calculator you're using on game day. 14 squared minus 4ac, negative 15. 676. So 676. Now, you should test. Is that a perfect square? I think it is. I think it's 26. Yeah, okay. So that's nice. If you get a perfect square, you might remember, oh, this is actually factorable. You could solve this one by factoring. But I'm going to now fill in the rest of the formula. The opposite of b, the opposite of positive 14 is negative 14 plus or minus the square root of 676 over 2 times a is 8. So that's going to be 2 times 8 is 16. But I can get nice numbers in this one because I'll say negative 14 plus 26 or negative 14 minus 26 over 16. I need some more space. Negative 14 plus 26 is 12 over 16, and that's negative 40 over 16. So when you reduce those fractions, 12 over 16 is 3/4. And those are both, let's see, 20 over 8. Oh, they're multiples of 8. So 5 over 2, negative 5 over 2. So 3/4 and negative 5 over 2 when you reduce the fractions. Yeah, looks good. Next one, it's equal to 0, so I don't have to do that. At least I don't got to worry about that too much. That's nice. Let me get this out of the way. Just scooch over. That's fine. All right, b squared minus 4ac. 15 squared minus 4ac equals. Type it in one step, exactly like I do. 15 squared minus 4ac. 65. Well, that's not a nice number. So this one's not going to be a lot more work past setting it up. The opposite of b, the opposite of positive 15 is negative 15. Square root of 65 over 2a. 2 times 5 is 10. We got to be a pen. The one thing I want you to do is distribute that 1/10. So you have to write, I'll maybe write in 2 steps. Negative 15 over 10 plus or minus radical 65 over 10. So this can't simplify. Radical 65, you have to leave alone. This is not 65, it's like 8.1, okay? It's the square root of 65, so you can't do anything with that. But you can reduce this, so 15 over 10 is negative 3 over 2. So those are your answers. That's how you write your answer. You are finished. You don't need to go any further. Let's try another one. These both equal 0. That's good. So b squared, 3 squared minus 4ac. 3 squared minus 4ac. 17. So again, since the square root of 17 is a gross decimal, it's called an irrational number, I'm not going to mess with it. I'm just going to say the opposite of b, negative 3, plus or minus radical 17. 2 times a, 2 times 2 is 4. And then we'll just split it up. Negative 3/4 plus or minus radical 17 over 4. Just leave your answer alone. Done. Last one. B squared is negative 28 squared minus 4ac. This is the one that people will type in wrong, and they've got the other 3 right, so they're like, I don't know what you're talking about. This is so easy. Here's how you type it in wrong. Negative 28 squared minus 4ac. Nope, you will get it wrong. You are done. You missed it. You did not square the negative. What your calculator is doing right here is taking the opposite of 28 squared. You need to multiply the negative 28 times the negative 28. And if you type this in wrong, you will get it wrong. Okay, the one step can get you. The discriminant is actually 484. Now, 484, I think, might also be a perfect square. It is. It's 22. So now I'll say the opposite of b, 28 plus or minus the square root of 484 over 2 times a is 10. But since I can, 28 plus square root of 484 is 22, I'm going to do this. 28 minus 22 over 10. So that's 28 plus 22 is 50 over 10, and 28 minus 22 is 6 over 10. So x equals 5, or x equals 3/5. So those are your answers. That's quadratic formula. If you get the discriminant right, it's easy. If you get the discriminant wrong, you're done. So just be careful. And let's see. Oh, okay. These are good questions. What would make it factorable? So if I said factor this, you would be like, okay, I need to find numbers that multiply to 24 and add to b. Well, that means we get to pick what b is. So 1 and 24, 2 and 12, 3 and 8, 4 and 6. Okay, so if they have to multiply to 24, maybe they add to 25. So I'd say they could add to 25. And since I could make them both negative and they would still multiply to a positive, I'm going to say plus or minus 25. What if I use those two, 2 and 12, plus or minus 14? 3 plus 8, plus or minus 11. 4 plus 6, plus or minus 10. So if I rewrote this, 2x squared plus, let's say, 10x plus 12, I could split the middle. I would use 4x and 6x. Okay, and then I would just keep going. I'm not actually going to do that, but what I'm saying is if I make this number any of these, like if I make this number 14, then instead of 4 and 6, I would pick 2 and 12. 2x and 12x. I could split the middle. If I made this any of those numbers, I could split the middle. And you could make the argument that any even number, 4, 6, 8, 10, I could factor out at least a GCF. So really any even number would make it factorable as far as GCF goes, but also any of these numbers makes it so I can split the middle. And that's what I'm really looking for. One more like that. I need to find numbers that multiply to 6 times negative 3 is negative 18 and add to whatever b I feel like. So 18 would be 1 and 18, 2 and 9, 3 and 6, and then 6 and 3 is a repeat. You got to put a minus sign somewhere. So 18 minus 1 would be 17, but if I put the negative over here, it would be negative 17. Negative 2 and 9 make 7. Negative 3 and 6 make 3. So any of those would work. I could put 17 there and it'd be factorable. I could put 7 there and it'd be factorable. I could put 3 there and it could be factorable. You could probably put any multiple of 3 because then you have a GCF. But what I'm really looking at are those. Those would make it so I could split the middle. And the last thing is just talking about the discriminant. If the discriminant is positive, so let's see, we just did one like that. The discriminant was positive in all of these, and they all had 2 solutions. So this is, if the discriminant is positive, there will be 2 solutions. And I'm actually going to say they are real solutions. That's the symbol we use for real numbers. If the discriminant is negative, you will get no solutions. And we didn't see any of those. If the discriminant is 0, there will be 1 real solution. But we didn't see that on this page either. If you go through your notes, you have several examples of all of those, though. And the last thing, this is just a handy trick. If the discriminant is a perfect square, so that was, let's see, this one and the one above it, I think. No, the one over here. Those are rational. That means that you could have factored it. So then I know that the quadratic was factorable. And if you have a choice between factoring and using the quadratic formula, I always choose factoring. So it's nice to know if something is factorable. All right, so little crash course there. We did factoring, square roots, and quadratic formula. If you can do those 3 things, you're going to be in great shape. So make sure you have all your homework done, and make sure you hit that like and subscribe.